I never thought I'd marry again, not after the heartbreak I endured the first time. My first marriage had been a practical one, stable, predictable, and without much romance. My husband was kind but distant, more involved with his work than our relationship. Still, I stayed, mostly for the boy he brought into my life. His son from a previous relationship. My stepson was just a child when I met him, wide-eyed and curious. Over the years I raised him like my own. He called me Amy, and I loved him more than anything. But love alone couldn't keep a broken marriage alive. My husband and I drifted apart. We divorced quietly, respectfully. My stepson went abroad for studies, and I was left in a house full of silence, learning to live alone again. For years, I poured myself into my work, my hobbies, my plants. I wasn't looking for love, not really. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I met Kareem through a mutual friend at a wedding. He was charming, attentive, and much younger than me. At first, I assumed he was flirting to pass time. Men like him rarely look twice at women like me. Divorced in my late 30s, carrying emotional baggage. But Kareem was different. He listened when I spoke, remembered little things, made me laugh again. He never made me feel like I had to pretend to be younger or different. He accepted my age, my past, my scars. When he proposed after a year of dating, I hesitated. He was only 25, 12 years younger than me. What would people say? What would my stepson think? But in the end I chose my happiness. For the first time in years I felt seen. Our wedding was small, intimate, and filled with joy. Friends whispered about the age gap, but I ignored them. Kareem made me feel safe, loved, and youthful again. He moved into my home, and we began to build a life together, full of laughter, new routines, and gentle evenings. Months passed peacefully, until one afternoon, I received a message from my stepson. He was coming home for a visit after years abroad. My heart lit up. I couldn't wait to introduce him to Kareem, the man who had filled the void left behind after his father and I parted ways. I set the dinner table with care, wearing my best smile. I imagined it, my two favorite people finally meeting. But when they came face to face that night, something unexpected happened. They froze, locked eyes. And in that moment, something changed in the room. Neither spoke first. I smiled nervously, brushing it off. Maybe they were just surprised. But deep inside I felt a tremor, something was off. And I had no idea just how deep that silence would go. Dinner that night was unlike anything I had imagined. I had pictured warm conversations, stories shared over steaming plates, laughter echoing through the walls. Instead, the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken words. My stepson, Asim, now a confident and composed young man, sat rigidly across from Kareem, whose smile had faded into something tight and uncertain. They barely spoke. I tried to fill the silence with cheerful updates. About neighbors, vacations we'd never taken, recipes Kareem had loved, but my words floated awkwardly in the air, unanswered. Asim responded politely, but without warmth. Kareem, usually so engaging, barely touched his food. His eyes darted between his plate and Asim's face, as if searching for a memory, or avoiding one. After dinner, Asim excused himself early, claiming jet lag. I walked him to the guest room, hugging him tightly. He held me a moment longer than usual, and as he pulled back he said quietly, "We need to talk later." His tone was gentle, but laced with something unreadable. Back in the kitchen, Kareem was washing dishes in silence. I teased him about being too quiet, hoping to lighten the mood. He smiled faintly and said, "He's grown up well." That was all. No comment on how polite Asim was, no mention of how much he'd changed. Just that one sentence, detached, rehearsed. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. My thoughts spiraled. Was it just the age difference making them both uncomfortable? Or was there something more? The next morning, while organizing an old drawer, I came across an old photo album, mostly filled with pictures from Asim's school days. I smiled at the memories, flipping through them, until one photo made me freeze. It was a group picture, a sim with his college friends at a university function abroad. But in the corner, partially turned but unmistakable, stood Kareem. Younger, yes, but clearly him. My heart skipped a beat. Why would Kareem be in a photo with a sim years ago? Long before we met. Why hadn't either of them mentioned this? I placed the album on the table and sat in silence. My thoughts raced. Had their paths crossed in passing? Or was there something deeper? Something both of them had chosen not to tell me? That evening I tried to act normal. But something in me had shifted. I watched them both more closely. Kareem avoided eye contact with a sim. A sim in turn seemed guarded, calculating. I wasn't imagining it anymore. There was a history here. And I was the only one being left in the dark. I waited until a sim had gone out for a walk before confronting Kareem. I held the photo album tightly in my hands. The image of him in a sim's university group photo burned into my mind. He was sitting in the lounge, scrolling his phone, when I placed the album beside him. He looked up. "What's this?" he asked, voice low. "Just some old memories," I replied, opening the album to the photo in question. "Recognize anyone?" Kareem's face stiffened. His gaze lingered on the image, then drifted away, as if pretending not to notice himself in it. "Looks like a sim's university days. You must be proud." "I am," I said evenly. "But I'm confused." "That's you, isn't it?" He didn't answer right away. Then finally, after what felt like forever, he sighed. "Yes, it's me." I stared at him, waiting for the rest. But silence filled the space between us like a wall. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Yes." Kareem leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Because I thought it didn't matter. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding suspicious." "Try," I said firmly. He ran a hand through his hair, hesitating. "A sim and I. We went to the same university abroad. We were in a few classes together. We weren't close, just acquaintances. That's it." I didn't believe him. Not entirely. His voice lacked conviction. "So you lied about your age too?" That caught him off guard. His mouth opened, then closed. "You said you were 25 when we met. But if you were in university with a sim, that would make you older than him. A sim is 27 now." He looked down, guilt washing over his face. "I'm 31. My world tilted. 4 years older than my stepson. My younger husband had been lying to me since day one. The man who made me feel young again had disguised his truth behind charming smiles and stolen moments." "Why?" I whispered. Kareem finally looked at me, shame in his eyes. "Because I didn't think you'd give me a chance if you knew I wasn't that young. I fell for you long before we met properly. I saw you once with a sim on campus. You were visiting. I couldn't forget you." My heart pounded in my chest. Felt sick, physically ill. "You built a relationship with me on lies," I said, voice trembling. "All of it, your age, your background, even how we met." "It wasn't a lie about how I feel," he pleaded. "Everything else I can explain, but I truly love you." But love wrapped in deception didn't feel like love anymore. The walls of our home suddenly felt too close, the air too heavy. My mind swirled with every memory we had shared, and every detail he had hidden. What else didn't I know? And how much more was I willing to accept? I didn't speak to Kareem that night. I needed space, room to breathe, to think, to process the weight of everything he had hidden. I curled up on the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy with grief. It wasn't just about the lies. It was about the betrayal of trust, the rewriting of our love story without my consent. The next morning, I found a sim waiting for me in the garden. He sat on the bench we used to share when he was a little boy, knees bouncing, hands clasped. "I figured you know by now," he said without looking at me. He nodded. "You knew all along, didn't you?" I asked softly. "I recognized him the second I saw him," a sim admitted. "He wasn't just a classmate. We were friends briefly. But he always talked about some older woman he admired. I never knew it was you." Not until that night. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you say anything? I wasn't sure what was going on between you two. I didn't want to interfere unless I was certain. But I also didn't want you to be hurt. You've already been through enough. His words were like a bomb and a blade. Kind but cutting. I had indeed been through enough. Later that evening I called Kareem into the living room. The tension was thick, but my voice was steady. You had so many chances to tell me the truth, I began. And I might have forgiven the age lie, even the university connection. But you let me believe in a version of you that never existed. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. I don't want explanations. I want peace. And I can't find peace in a marriage built on manipulation, no matter how much love you claim to have. His face collapsed with emotion. I never meant to hurt you. I know, I said gently. But you did. That night, Kareem packed a small bag and left. No yelling. No drama. Just silence and finality. The days that followed were quiet. I watered my plants, cleaned the house, cooked simple meals. Grief came in waves, but so did relief. Slowly, I began reclaiming parts of myself that I had buried beneath the fantasy of being loved again. Asim stayed for a few more days. We talked more than we had in years. Laughed even. His presence reminded me of the kind of love that's honest, that grows with you, not against you. I had chased youth, thinking it would fill the holes left by time. But what I truly needed was truth, no matter how old or ordinary it looked. And in choosing to walk away from the lie, I finally stepped into something real, myself.